Morning, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in. We have a very important and timely conversation happening today, exploring the link between mental health and mental wellness and performance. In today's panel, we have Alan Miller, Dave Barr, and Ashwin Patel, all members of Hockey Canada's gold medal winning U18 team at the 2021 IIHF World Championships in Frisco, Texas. My name is Jessica Rennie, and I am facilitating the conversation today. I'm a certified Canadian psychotherapist who specializes in working with athletes from a mental health perspective. I co-founded an organization dedicated to really elevating athlete mental health called Mindful Athletics, and more recently co-founded and launched an application called Hone that really supports coaches, athletes, and organizations in bringing mental health and the mental health conversation into the sporting environment. So let's get started introducing the panel. Alan Miller is a somewhat recently minted director of player personnel for Hockey Canada. He led our under-18 program and Canada's under-18 2021 men's national team to a gold medal, obviously in Frisco, Texas. Now, Al also advised the under-20 program and Canada's national junior team to capture a silver medal at the 2021 IIHF World Championships in Edmonton. In addition to Al being on the panel, we're also going to have Dave Barr. Now, Dave has experience as a professional player, playing 13 years in the National Hockey League, also assistant coaching for various teams in the league, and of course being the head coach for the 2021 gold medal winning team in Frisco, Texas. And lastly, we have Dr. Ashwin Patel. Ash is the co-founder of a sport and wellness consulting business and received his PhD in sport exercise psychology from the University of Tennessee. And he was also selected to be the mental performance consultant for the U18 team who won gold in Frisco, Texas. So without further ado, let's get started. Thank you everyone for being here today. We have a very exciting conversation to be had. Dave, I'm going to start with you. And there was, I saw a heading the other day and it said, mental health in sport is finally having its moment. And I kind of want to start by backing that up a little bit and talking and asking you, why do you think it's so important for us to be having, a conversation about mental health in athletics or with athletes?
Well, I mean, it's life. Athletes they're athletics. They're in their sport that they're competing in on a daily basis for the most part. And they also have their outside life, their life away from sport. And, the two very often kind of merge, sometimes not all smoothly. And I think with all the demands of social media, especially with the younger athletes, the, teenagers and maybe early 20s, all the demands of social media, and especially if they are a professional athlete and they're in the spotlight, there's a lot of pressure put on them that maybe 30 years ago or 20 years ago wouldn't be there as obvious anyways.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we figure out ways how to guide them, help them. From the coaching point of view, we're kind of aware of how they're feeling, their confidence level. When it comes to, in our case, in regards to playing hockey, we try to work with them to try to make them the best hockey players we can be. And at the same time, especially when you're guiding younger players, you're trying to, help mold them into good young men or women. It's really important. There's never been a stage where there's, in my time, where there's been more pressure and more outside forces, are tweaking, maybe how they would be thinking normally.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you say that from also a player perspective or just a coach's perspective? When you say the pressure hasn't been as big as it is now, it is for our young people now. Would you have said that 20 years ago?
Definitely for the players. They're all on social media. After a good game, I'm sure they go on and look. I'm talking about professional, hockey players in Canada. They go on and they'll take a peek at, boy, this person sure thought my game was good.
Yeah.
It's the good, the bad.
Yeah.
And then after a bad game, I as a coach, I try to never look, no matter what. We win 20-0. I don't want to see anything about it, just because the highs and lows of it are just, too much.
Yeah.
So I think it really does affect today's athlete, and they're almost encouraged by teams. They are encouraged by teams to get out there, put their name out there, in the proper way. But there is a lot of pressure through social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really nice segue into kind of having the next conversation. And Ash, I want to kind of really lean on you for this one. 63% of student athletes report a mental health concern that impacts their capacity to perform. And these are pre-COVID stats. So, there's a good chance we're going to see that increase. Yet we're only seeing 10% of athletes get help. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, what are some of the barriers for our athletes getting that support they need from a mental health perspective?
It's a great question. And I think one of the challenges is that a lot of times there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of, there's a lack of clarity as to what actually it entails. Yeah. And for a lot of organizations, there aren't mental health or mental performance or sports psychologists available. Not every NHL team has one, not every AHL team, junior teams, etc. And so for some individuals, there's just the lack of access. Yeah. And then there's an additional challenge in some of those old stigmas that still may be there regarding something may be wrong with you if you need to speak to somebody. Now, I think that's shifting, and I credit Hockey Canada as being very forward thinking with regard that mental health is non-negotiable, right? Mental health is about everybody. Every single one of us has mental health, right? And not all of us have mental illness, and then everywhere in between on this continuum, there are challenges. And so I think for Hockey Canada addressing that. And I know other associations do as well, but I do think that's really important to normalize it. Hey, everybody has other things. Dave got a really good point. We're all human. So we're also bringing in our human lives. And then you add on additional stressors that may exacerbate some other things that are going on in your life. And that may not allow you to be able to perform at the level that you want, because if you don't have those necessary tools to cope with or thrive in those situations. And so I think that is another aspect. But the more that it's normalized by coaches and administrators and managers, then I think players are going to feel a little bit more comfortable about opening up and recognizing it's just another thing that they can build on and strengthen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well said. And Alan, that brings up for me, as a leader within Hockey Canada and the director of player personnel within that organization, Hockey Canada certainly is taking a progressive approach to supporting their athletes' wellness. And I'm curious to know from you and from the perspective of Hockey Canada, why is this important to you and to the organization?
Well, I think that, first of all, that, mental health is like Barzy talked about with life, it's a societal issue, and it's really reflects on the athlete in those pressure and stress situations. And we've all probably, gone through more and above in the last 18 months than we could have ever imagined. So as you begin to prepare your teams for competition, and at our level, we deal at the highest level in terms of world championships. I think that first and foremost, from Hockey Canada's perspective, there is a value system in place that we want to offer support and take care of people, whether those people are employees, whether those are the athletes that compete and are part of our programs. Our leadership wants to show that support in terms of looking after people generally.
Yeah.
And then when we look at competition, one of the things that we work through is, we have 4 pillars that we look at in terms of preparation, technical, physical, and all those things. But one of those areas is the final area is what we talk about is environment for success. And when we talk about environment for success, that's about surrounding our athletes and our staff with all the resources they need to be successful, to be comfortable, to be confident, and to enhance their performance.
Yeah.
So when we talk about medical staff and we talk about athletic therapists and strength and conditioning coaches, the best coaches in the world, the best video coaches, how do we enhance that on the mental health side? We've done that with your company, Jessica, in terms of Hone, offering that support, offering that outlet for our players to talk.
Yeah.
And I think that for us, that mental health support fits right in with all the other aspects that we have in our environment for success when we prepare for competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think about that, wellness or athlete wheel, how we develop athletes. And for a long time, the mental health piece hasn't, I don't think, gotten the attention that it deserves. And it's a part of that athlete development piece, and a part of kind of not only developing the athlete, but the human being in addition to the athlete too. So I'm going to keep it real here for a second and ask you guys to think back to as you were preparing for the Under-18 World Championships, and when you first got the indication that you would be using a mental health tool to support athletes. And Dave, let's start with you. What were your kind of initial instinctual reaction when you heard, okay, we're going to have some mental health support in addition to all the other amazing things that our athletes will be getting?
Well, being an ex-athlete or an ex-hockey player, going through it, I mean, a huge part of our success individually is believing in yourself, confidence in yourself. And if we could help take away as many negative, things that might be thinking because of we were stuck in a hotel, 5 days straight. When we got down to Dallas, they were 5 or 6 days in their own homes or their billets homes before they went to Dallas. Or you're like 10 days really not having much interaction. So you're probably doing a lot of thinking about, hockey and yourself and so forth. So, I was extremely happy getting to know Ashwin prior to the event, and then knowing that Hone was going to be helping us get a feel for what the athletes were thinking, what was bothering them, what was rating them out of, I think it was 9 or 10 at the time, and it was very, very helpful because as a coach, I'm kind of an old school type guy. As a coach, you're trying to prepare them on the ice, trying to get their mindset, make sure they know all the systems, everything, et cetera, et cetera. And then we would get the feedback from you, and you'd kind of pull back a bit and go, "Oh, that guy's feeling like he hasn't been heard," or whatever it might be. So it gets you thinking a little bit. You kind of think more about the mental side and how can you assist them, knowing that some of the players are feeling this way. And, you don't want them to feel that way. You want them to be 10 out of 10 all the time, feeling great, but it's not always going to happen. So it was great from that end. Kind of making us as a coach think a little bit differently.
You're saying you're an old school coach, but this is pretty new school, Dave. Pretty new school. Ash, how about for you as an NPC and as someone who really focuses on the performance? Also, I know you're very well versed in supporting the individual as well. So how was it for you knowing that you would have mental health support and that the athletes would have that support?
It's great. Like I was, the first thing I did was I reached out to, Dr. Ryan Hamilton, who's the mental performance lead for Hockey Canada as a whole, and obviously worked for the Tampa Bay Lightning and was with the World Junior team and had interactions with you. So I just reached out to him. What was that like? How was the conversations, et cetera? Then you and I spoke, and Paula. And to me, it's you're trying to find as many ways to support the individuals as humans first, and then also as performers. And I also know my ethical boundaries. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I do not have, I'm not a licensed therapist. I have a doctorate in sports psychology, but to have you and Paula available to be able not only to monitor, just some baseline information, regarding sleep and readiness and energy levels and things along those lines. It's another tool. Like, we use analytics for various reasons, and this is another way to just better understand what may be happening, how it may change as we're going from, as Dave was mentioning, the quarantine in the hotel room, both before and afterwards, and then leading into the medal round, and to see if there are some changes there, but also knowing that the players, if something is serious that is coming up where it is more on the mental illness side, that we have two fantastic individuals that can speak to them and help them through that process. So it's a holistic approach, I think, of wellness and performance.
Awesome. Yeah, fantastic. And Alan, what about for you? What about when, we worked together at the 2020 World Junior Championships as well, and the U18. So when you kind of heard that this would be a part of the athletes' packages or the athlete services, in addition to giving, coaches a bit of a pulse on how their team's doing, what were those initial kind of gut responses for you?
Well, it was interesting, Jessica, when I look back and Ash and Barzy talked about the under 18s. I'll take it back to, as you mentioned, November 2020 and what we went through with the national junior team. And we actually ended up spending 19 days out of 30 days outside of the first date of the tournament starting in isolation. We had positive tests and we actually were shut down for 14 days, and we had made no cuts at that time. We still had 45 plus athletes and staff in the hotel in Red Deer.
Yeah.
So we had talked, going into our camp about hone. And to be honest, Jessica, and as these guys know, I'm not a tech guy, but as we were dealing with COVID and all those things, I'm like, there's another app that I got to deal with in the mornings.
Fair enough.
And
Totally.
and and we were having these COVID testing and then so but so we kind of looked at it as, okay, we got educated on hone from you and Paula, and it was excellent, and that was a first step in terms of the education for our players and staff to know the resources and the tools that we had. From there, I thought, okay, this is great for what we're going through in isolation and having this available for our players. And as we know, it's private for the individual, but we know that we had players reach out during that time to you and Paula for assistance and be able to talk through things. What I found during that process, that regardless of COVID and isolation and those things, that hone and support of mental health, support of the athletes, goes beyond COVID, goes beyond isolation. And there is a true place for it to be part of your programs, whether it's the workplace, whether it's in competition. So for me, it kind of started out a little bit, with the unknown. You get educated, you see how it works. And I'm, from those steps, I became a big component as part of joining Hockey Canada on the management side after World Juniors, that this was a staple that we needed to be part of our programs moving forward.
Yeah, and I so appreciate that, Al. I so appreciate that honesty, because it is new, and I am also not a tech person. So I think about how busy you all are when you're in tournament, and especially just in life in general. So if I'm thinking to kind of, what we would maybe say to coaches who aren't sure about using a mental health tool that will support their coaches and athletes at large, knowing what you all know now, and Dave, I'll start with you, and then we'll move through to Al and Ashwin. Knowing what you know now, Dave, as a coach who might be hesitant, what would you tell that coach around supporting and using a mental health tool?
I asked, I'm in Vienna coaching the Vienna Capitals. I'm in actually Germany right now, but I asked our goalie coach, who's a sharp guy. I asked him, I said, hey, I'm doing a show a little bit later on, a podcast a little bit later on today. What do you think about mental health? And he started, talking about, a little bit deeper in regards to players who are having real problems. And this might catch some of those problems that maybe, where players have committed suicide because of it. Maybe it catches a little bit of that before it gets to that stage. I don't know. But I just from a coaching point of view, it opened my eyes. I was about maybe 3-4 days into it. Hadn't really looked at it. Again, we have so much going on. We're thinking about other stuff. We got forechecks, no good. D-zone coverage needs to be better. And, last thing you're thinking about is the mental health of your players, especially when, he was the guy that made the bad forecheck.
Yeah.
But really what it comes down to is the better that they're feeling mentally, the more often they're going to do what we need them to do on a minute by minute basis during a game, doing it right. So I came around. I went kind of full circle there real quickly because there was a lot of information coming my way, and then this was just one of them. And I kind of looked at it, put it over here, looked at it, put it over there, and then I started looking at it. It gets you thinking, as a coach, and how you can utilize this and maybe to change how the players are feeling or influence them they're mentally in a positive way that helps out on the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Al, what about for you, for that organization who might be hesitant to adopt or roll out some sort of mental health tool for athletes? What would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I think it's important that I mentioned, and I think this will bring a smile to everybody's face, is that our under 18 team had this support, and we're world champions, right, Barzy?
Yep, we are.
We are. So you're never going to take that away from us, and we feel that the support we had was all part of the package in terms of us being successful. What I would really say to people and organizations in terms of any hesitancy around support in this area would be, the first thing I would say is, if you help one person or you save one person within your group, it's worth it. That's the first thing. And the reality is, you're probably going to find within your group there's more than one person that needs the support and would benefit from the ability to reach out and the ability to have counseling when needed. Yeah. I think it's a win-win for organizations, because it's a win-win for the organization and it's a win-win for their people in terms of, one thing I think is the mindset to get up in the morning and, grab a cup of coffee and plan your day, and to just go through the process in terms of how you're feeling, I think is a great mindset for you to start your day, especially when you're in competition, especially when you're maybe in a pressure-filled, stress-filled type of environment. And I think that, and Jessica, and dealing with you and Paula, I think that, I would say to people, it's easy to use. It's private for the individual. It's professional. And for leaders in your organization, you're able to offer support for your people. You're able to care for your people, but at the same time, and I want to continue to say, even though it's private for the individual, as leaders within your organization, you get the feedback, you get the reports, you get the information, you get the communication with Jessica and Paula that allows you to keep a pulse on where your group is at. And for us, in terms of managing teams in a short-term, pressure-filled competition, building up to the medal round, building up to the opportunity to win a world championship, it allows managers and coaches to pivot and reflect in terms of how they deal with their group on and off the ice. And I think it's invaluable.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Al. Well said. And Ash, you're going to take it home here. But what would you impart on a mental performance consultant or someone with your credentials who isn't really sure about kind of bringing mental health and a mental health tool in? Knowing what you know now, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what I was saying earlier. I think it's another value add, because this is about supporting the individual that, that are also athletes. And I think once you normalize that there's a mental performance sports psychologist, professional, in addition to having great people like yourself and Paula that have additional kind of clinical backgrounds that can address some of the other areas, because that's another aspect in terms of sports psychology, is that we all have different levels of training.
Yeah.
And different areas of focus. And so recognizing from an ethical perspective where your strengths lie and where they may not. And I always think of it that it's, when you have people like Alan and coaches like Dave that are embracing it, that's a victory right there. Because if they are on board, like, this is important, we value this, we want you to feel right, to be able to converse with people in a confidential manner, then what you're creating is an environment where it's okay to share some of this information, which then allows you to be able to, talk about it. And then especially in these pressure situations, to be able to then come up with some tools that would allow you to be able to perform at your best and to also feel right. So from my role as a mental performance, right, I'm trying to help the athletes with general, confidence, anxiety, self-talk, things along those lines. That, in conjunction with what you and Paula can provide from a baseline perspective, I think just gives us better information to be able to let the athletes know that they're supported.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's exciting.
Yeah. And I will say that the manner in which all of you, but particularly you, Ash, from a mental performance side, really embraced and joined us in being able to provide the best service we could as a team to the athletes was incredible. And Paul and I always talk about, there's no surprise why you guys are world champions, because it starts with the three of you, and it was incredible for us to be a part of your journey to coming there and winning that. So thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. It's a very important conversation, and I think it will become increasingly more important as time goes on. I appreciate your embracing a mental health tool, and I also want to give a huge shout out to the coaches site for giving us a platform to be able to talk about this very, very important issue. They've always kind of gotten behind supporting the athlete and supporting mental health. So thank you to the three of you, and thank you to the coaches site, and enjoy watching all of these guys talk about the importance of mental health. And have a good morning, night, afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks so much.